about. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV channel 477 on Star Times and on Zuku on 0073, as well as we are there online across all the social media platforms where you are not to be worried of in case you are planning to leave maybe West Nile sub-region, maybe you're planning to leave Uganda, are thinking that you're going to be missing out. But we are saying you can watch us anytime and from any part of the world. All you need to do is have a connection to the internet. All you need is that, and then you will be able and in position to watch us via Facebook and via YouTube, as well as the other social media platforms. For instance, TikTok, we are also there on West Nile TV, where you can be able to watch us anytime you feel like you need to watch West Nile TV, and that is the beauty of technology, and that's how we have gone with. And all this is to keep you informed and not worried of anything you are about to also really think of. That's where we are starting off our discussion. Remember, so many issues going to happen. And in Arua City, it was a busy day where we were able to have a number of engagements. But one of the engagements that actually took my attention, where I was able to be there for the whole day, is the MDD for primary schools. And 25 schools represented. This is for Central Division. But I must say, all the government schools were able to be in position, something which was a bit exciting to see all the primary schools within Central Division participating in MDD contest in there. But the winners, guess, they are Winderi Primary School, who actually won after beating the rest of the schools in there. And we did see only a few private schools turning up, and this was at a function that took place at Springs Nursery and Primary School in Arua City, where over 25 schools participated. And not among the schools include Arua Primary School. We do have Swalhin and Nyafio Primary School. We did see also private schools also turning up as well in numbers, about 6 of them also participating, which was something quite interesting. And talking about the private schools, the Horse Springs were also there. We did see schools like Sir Andrew Nursery and Primary School participating as well, which is kind of good to see, because we want to see all the schools participating in all the activities. And talking about MDD, this is actually part of the co-curricular activities and what is solely onto the career in there. And today, many people actually say it is one of those courses that also really you should allow your children to solely participate in, because it actually creates a ready market and ready opportunity for the children who are also really going to be coming out as graduates from those maybe that course in there. Because if you look at also the graduates, one of the most instrumental figures that studied MDD is actually party principal for NUP, and this is where today many people also pick example from him. And we are saying MDD is not all about music, it's not all about dancer, it is all about creativity, and that is how the music, dance, and drama is actually very, very much important. And that is where we are saying we did see that function going on in a function presided over by Drakma Malik, the Central Division Town Clerk, together with Oshino Rashid, who actually accompanied, that is the technical leadership of, that is the Central Division in that function in there. And that is something we did see happening, and I must say it's quite interesting to actually see the learners exhibit and also really show our cultures in there. And I will be letting you know that later on as we get to continue with the show. And now that's where we are also talking about the traders. Remember, the traders in Kampala have also recently come out to vowed that they will be going onto the streets and also close their shops if at all they did not have also the meeting with His Excellency Yoweri Museveni in there. Now the traders vow not to resume work unless Museveni speaks to them, because they were started to meet the president yesterday, but unfortunately, I believe due to unforeseen circumstances, the meeting had to be postponed, and now they want to still continue meeting. Also, they also want to continue to go on with the meeting with His Excellency Yoweri Museveni over issues of tax. Is actually one of the stories that we are seeing on the paper this morning. I don't know what you think. The president also, what reason you have also why the president must sit with them, because I believe the president has representatives. Maybe the vice president could be delegated to also really be on behalf of him in there. Now the traders are also really against a proposed tax collection system, which is supposed to be online in there, something which they call IFRIS. And this is something which we do understand hasn't been well with the traders ever since it was launched, because many of them claim on issues of overtaxation, many of them claim of difficulty in how to access the system, and all this also really, we did see them also really coming out. And recently we also did see that meeting not yielding on well, where the people continue to also really demand for this meeting. But how exactly should the president also really respond to these people's queries? Should the tax collection body URA maybe develop an alternative to this IFRIS, or else should they customize the system to make it a bit user-friendly to the people as they also claim to do so? All these are questions also that should be answered by Uganda Revenue Authority to the head of state in now. That's something we did see happening. And talking about URA, they are still also in Western Sub-Region running what we call their registration motorcycle registration exercise, which is also on promotion in there, and that is something also really which I feel before we get to see ourselves on the rough and also really on running battles with enforcement officers, my people who are still running numberless motorcycles need to also take advantage of that. And now the president also really reschedules a twice deferred meeting with the group into also really to look into their grievances. This is the second time now we are seeing the president also really postponing the meeting. But how exactly should these traders also really maybe act if at all the president has continued to also really postpone their meetings is something also really which I feel is very, very much important, because if at all we do not talk about it, then definitely at the end of the day, if at all we are going to be seeing also people with the placards on the roads, or else if shops are closed, then definitely it is all of us who are going to be affected, because as the consumer who is of the products from Kampala, who is deep down in a rural city here, I must say most of the products still come from Kampala because we don't have very many factories. But the good news is on 3rd of this month, next month, sorry, we shall be seeing the head of state also visiting Western Sub-Region to now officially commission the connection that is of the region to the national grid, something which I say must be long overdue to the people, and that also should be coming as a source of excitement. But exactly how are we ready for this electricity? Because there's connectivity and then the userness. Are we ready for this? Maybe this power that is going to be given to us. That is something also really which the leaders will be here to answer tomorrow, and how exactly they will be responding to the questions. And of course, I want to also really encourage you tomorrow to also really wait for that discussion where we shall be talking about issues related to the West Nile being connected to the national grid in there. Now the traders remain opposed to what they describe as high taxes on imports and the implementation of Uganda Revenue Authority electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution system, which is also known as the IFRIS, which many say is hard and also difficult for them also to use in. Now the president people want also really all the three issues, IFRIS taxation and foreign traders also really that are dealing in petty businesses also will be dealt with, because today you find really an investor, somebody who is brown and somebody whom we know, because we know the colors of these investors, and many times when you look at somebody who is brown with a particular hair, we always tend to term them as investors. But how exactly should we know an investor, and how should we exactly also identify an investor? Because many of times also somebody could just come from wherever they are coming from, not necessarily as an investor, just to come and do small business. But then in Uganda, we look at all of them as investors. That could be maybe how we are looking at them, but I'm saying everybody also really is something that many of the traders actually raising concern over that. There are people who have come from wherever they're coming from outside foreign countries, who are into Uganda doing petty business that are meant to be done by the locals. What if the locals are not doing the business? Then what exactly should these people do if at all they see the opportunity that has not been tapped into by the young people? And that is something also really which I feel at the end of the day is very, very much important for us to understand, because if at all we don't understand it, then definitely we are going to be seeing people are still continuing to linger behind of also the poverty in there. But now today, with the several government programs that are in place, we are saying we shouldn't wait for investors to come from wherever they are coming from to also really come and establish businesses where we can also really establish our own. And now the traders strike coincides with the planned return of the March to Parliament anti-corruption protests, with also really, we did see in the month also really, which so many people also really being arrested, and now many of them are now being granted bail. But we are saying, why should you wait to be also really arrested in there just because you think you're demanding for your freedom? There are better alternatives which you can also really be able to use in terms of also making sure that your voice is heard in there. Now also we did see that happening, and now the traders are saying anytime from now they will be on the streets. And Kawanda back choice also informed traders of the postponement using voice note, saying he could not also write an official letter during the weekend, and that is something that's happening in there. And now that means the president wouldn't also really meet with the traders. In now Uganda's June tax collections surfaced, or that's at 165.6 billion shortfall, largely blamed by government on the April 24 traders strike in East African country. And according to the Ministry of Finance, the strike directly also really impacted on tax returns, as the country was able to only obtain, that is 3.3 3.030 trillion shillings against, that is 3.881 trillion target for the month of June in there. And that's something we did see happening, and I feel I also need to keep you reminded of that. But how exactly should these traders also concern be heard? Because necessarily I want to say, if at all the president, because they are stakeholders, without the traders then there's no taxes. And if at all the traders are not appreciative of what exactly is on the ground, then the government will not also really get the taxes they want, because many businesses are going to be closing if at all the taxes are too much on them. I really want to say the businesses are going to be closing. Many people are going to be packing and move away from the country. And that's where issues of people moving away from the country to go and do what we call cheo are going to be rising, because somebody feels in Uganda he or she is working for nothing, he or she is also closing they prefer moving and leaving the country, and that's how at the end of the day many issues of poverty continue to arise, and that's how many people continue to linger in poverty. But how exactly should government respond to the concerns of these traders? Because I really feel their pain must be heard, because if at all they're complaining about the IFRIS, and then how can we also really talk about the issues of IFRIS, and how should government respond to them, and what exactly should government do if at all this system is actually good? I really feel government needed to also really allow the developers of this app, make it a bit user-friendly, and then avoid errors. But I'm saying without also really, these are human-made also developments, and without also really, sometimes we also really see people getting shortfalls also in there. But how do we make sure that these issues that people encounter as challenges are addressed? This is where the concern is, because given from the look of things, the traders have not officially rejected what we call the IFRI system, but many are actually complaining about the issue of maybe the high taxes. But how exactly should their concerns be heard is what exactly matters in here. Now that's where we are leaving that aside and leaving that topic, also moving on to what we are seeing on the papers elsewhere. Government urged to improve or policy on to develop policy to improve on workers' welfare is another story that we are seeing on the papers this morning, where the International Labour Organization has urged government to adopt a framework for programming towards the attainment of decent work, in order to also really ensure safe and decent work, also really environments for their employees. And this call was made during the speaking at the opening of week-long training of the Labour Advisory Board. That's of National Program Officer Jacqueline Banya said policy development and national dialogue would improve working relations between workers and employees. This is quite absolute, and this is quite important, where I feel sometimes already workers' voices are never heard, and you really find all this also really is impacting. And really this would also to me apply under domestic workers. I really feel these people whom they call maids, I really feel that this policy needed to be developed yesterday, because I feel at the end of the day, if at all we develop a policy that will be understanding how exactly the workers' treatment should be done, then at the end of the day, we are going to be avoiding the violations of the rights of the employees also in there, something which has often been there, and we have seen it sort of happening, and where I feel the labor laws could actually be a solution to all that. And what exactly should this also really imply? I want to say all this is also really aiming to sort of make sure that the relationship between the workers and employers is actually streamlined. And according to Banya, a decent work program will soon be finalized also really and launched to guide governments on policy formulation in there. And that's one thing also really which I feel must also really be given keen interest to. And ENAB international expert on decent work and social protection, Bavian Ebil Pamok, said strengthening of the labor inspection unit and the lab is one of the essential needs also really to improve workplace conditions for the workers. And I feel this is quite common with also really under more so who are working under factories. Really inspection of the workplaces is sometimes good, because you find somebody working in an environment that is a bit hazardous without safety measures being put in place. Somebody, for instance, let's say is working in a construction site, but the person is not putting on a gumboot, the person is not putting on a headgear, what we call the helmets, the person is not putting on a jacket, people are not putting on masks. At the end of the day, you see people working. After a few years, you see the same people are now lingering with health conditions. But how do we make sure all those health hazards, all those risks at workplaces are all avoided? Because I believe some of the times people work without also these conditions, and that is how at the end of the day we see them also really finding challenges after leaving their workplace. And the bosses may not also really allow them after getting the sicknesses, they let go of them, and that's where which becomes a problem. And this subject is under total suffering, and after a few days you find the person dying, mainly because of stress, because the work environment did not also really very much cater for them in there. But how do we make sure all this works also really for both parties in there, both that is the labor, also employers and the employees themselves? Because we need to also really understand, we also need to work for a relationship that will be both-sided, not only a relationship that is going to be one-sided in there. And that is how exactly I feel I need to also really keep you reminded of, and that's also really something where the policy must also really be developed to maybe address on such of the caliber of these issues. And now the Commissioner Labor, International Industrial Relations and Productivity at the Ministry of Gender, Alex Asimwe, highlighted the need for favorable also really environment for the employers and the employees as well, so that really work can be able to move smoothly in there. Now the lab also chairperson Nicholas John Okwi held the training also really as one tool to make board members understand and appreciate their roles and responsibilities as something also really a very much important in there. And I feel at the end of the day, that is actually something that's going to be impacting on the livelihoods of the citizens in there. And that's where we are leaving that discussion aside and now jetting back to West Nile, and we are looking at several of these government projects that have been also really rolled out by organizations and how they are changing the lives of the citizens of West Nile. How exactly are these programs solely benefiting? Because if you move mostly to the refugee host communities, you will know that a lot of programs are being implemented by partners. But how exactly are these programs impacting on the lives of those whom they targeted? And this is something which I feel at the end of the day is very much important. I'm talking about one of the programs. About 5 years ago, Mr. Moses Yeka, a South Sudanese refugee from Omogo Settlement, Terego District, depended on mainly the food ratio from the World Food Program, but now with also the cut in food also donations in there. What does that mean? He says when they fled from South Sudan to the settlement, life became hard for his family and there was no means to earn a living coupled with the food cut also in there where life becomes difficult. And now Mr. Yeka says the food ratio they receive from World Food Program could not last for a few days and for the family, including his 3 children, and would also really sometimes sleep hungry in there. Now, to that effect, we did see so many programs already being also launched in there. However, Yeka now became self-reliant when he was selected to benefit from the Security Protection and Economic Empowerment Project, which is also really abbreviated as the Supreme, which is being implemented by the World Vision with funding from the European Union 2 years ago. And now he is also really somebody who can be able to raise money for himself, because we are saying much as you are a refugee, you need to survive, because be it a refugee or be it a host community member, you still need to survive. You need to eat, because food is a necessity. Without food, we are going to be seeing ourselves becoming malnourished. We are going to be seeing people dying, and that would also not be well, because hunger is really something very much bad. And I remember one scenario during the COVID-19 period is that people were saying it is better for COVID-19 to kill them other than hunger killing them. I don't know who remembers that scenario where we were for COVID-19. Many people actually complaining about hunger, but that is one thing also really we did see happening in there. Now, talking about the programs changing the livelihoods of the citizens, we shall be dwelling much on that discussion as we bounce back shortly. We are 30 minutes after 7 o'clock, and this is still a KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV. We are going to be pausing with that discussion aside, but really I want to understand, we need to ask if at all you are a beneficiary of this program. From which organization, and how has it impacted on your life, and how has it changed your life? Definitely, we are going to be looking at that in the next half of the first hour. Stay tuned. My name is Farish Majid as we get back to you shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
The Miss Uganda 2024 Grand Finale is here! 28 finalists, 1 crown. On Saturday, 3rd of August at 8 p.m. Sheraton Hotel. 2 Ugandan beauty will be spiced up with glamour and entertainment from the legendary Maddox Sematimba, the popular Abeka Band, and Jackie Chandiru. The show will broadcast live exclusively on Makula Chika on Star Times at 8 p.m. Come, let's celebrate Ugandan beauty. Sponsored by VNA, Alemzed, Comform, Nanjing Hotel, Kira Motors, Sheraton, Uganda Airlines, and lead sponsors Dress Textiles and U Home. Miss Uganda 2024, True Ugandan Beauty.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from that short commercial breather. We are back into the second half of the first hour. We're at 33 minutes already after 7 o'clock. In case you are just still home watching us, and we are saying, and you're planning to go to work, we are saying you must do so because the rains may catch up with you. And I must say, in Arua City, it is a chilly weather where we are seeing some bit of cloudy weather, and how exactly that means, definitely we may see some rains also in the due course of the day in there. But we are saying, if at all you're still home and just planning to move to work, do not wait to also really be caught up by the rain. You can still watch us from the comfort of your office, just through also your phone, in from any place of your workplace. Still, all you need to do is have a connection to the internet. Still, you can be able to be part of the discussions of what we are doing this morning here. And I want to support you now in a special way and welcome you on board from wherever you are watching us this early morning. And I want to say thank you so much as we get back into the second half of the first hour here. And today many issues continue to happen, and earlier on we are talking about also the demands also really of the traders in Kampala, which remain unmet in there. And this demand is to meet the head of state, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And now they say the traders are now planning to also really demonstrate by, and we know how they usually demonstrate, by closing their shops. And once they close their shops, the whole economy is affected, and the whole country is actually affected by their repercussions. But how exactly should we also really deal with this issue, and how exactly should the government also really deal with this issue, where they are complaining about the tax system, which is the IFRIS, which is an electronic also system where people pay their taxes, file their returns, and do everything also really through online system in there. But now the traders are saying it is actually making them encounter what we call double payments, with others saying it is making them pay twice. But how do we make sure that all these issues that continue to arise from the business community, who are a partner, also a stakeholder in terms of also raising taxes in Uganda, because without them also the government of Uganda may not also realize the target of taxes in there, because the business community is actually one crucial stakeholder from whom the government of Uganda can be able to raise the monies. But how do you make sure that people pay the money smoothly without complaints is actually one thing we need to also really look out into, because if we're not looking at that, then definitely we are going to be seeing those issues also really having also really affecting them. And earlier on, we are talking about the government programs, also the programs that are being implemented in West Nile, and how they are changing the livelihoods of the citizens and the people of the region. And earlier on asked, how have you benefited from also the programs that are being run by the different non-government organizations in West Nile? Because we have quite many organizations really that are currently also really doing their also projects in West Nile sub-region, but we want to understand and want to assess how these organizations are changing the livelihoods of the citizens, because we must say hand in hand these organizations should work to also change the livelihoods of the citizens, because government cannot be able to do that alone. It is rather also a cardinal role of what we call the non-government organizations, also the partners who are also within the region to support the government in terms of really doing those programs. And now, how exactly have you benefited from these organizations, and have they also touched on your life? This is the question, because today we have so many organizations that are also already there to do so many activities. First of all, in training and skilling the citizens. And recently I was in Terego, where we did see others being trained on tailoring, others trained on mindset change, others trained on becoming leaders. And all this is actually to the benefit of the citizens, because I was able to traverse many of the local governments in Western Sub-region, more so those that are hosting refugees. You will be able to realize that many of the organizations are actually in there, and all this actually trying to also make sure that the issues of mindset is actually preached. But how exactly have they touched on the life of you as the citizen in there? And now that's something also we did see, but one person in the names of Yeka in Terego and Omogo refugee settlement is now benefiting from that, and he said the poultry business he has helped him to address the issue of balanced diet and payment of school fees for his children, and that is also where he got the monies and got the skills under the Supreme Project, which he used also really for bettering his life in there. Now, as the citizen who got the 1 million from government under the parish development model, you ate it, but somebody who came from miles away from the country and was forced to flee their country and run into this country is changing and also living a better life than you. What do you think exactly that will be also really meaning, and that should also be as a source of worry and also the source of also the pressure to you who hasn't received the money and who is yet to get the money? We are saying get the money, put it into the right channels, utilize it into those projects that you wrote. At the end of the day, just like this gentleman, you will be able to solely change and also narrate your stories in there. And now similarly, Mr. Adam Asio, a 47-year-old who lost a community member from a host community member from Gimara Sub-County in Obongi District, shared cassava production as a business 4 years ago, and Mr. Asio says now he has started the project with 5 acres of land, but now he is yielding about 18 millions for the same project and increased the averages to that is 10 to 27, also with the family members mainly providing labor force for him in there. And all this are people who have benefited from different projects, but how exactly do you think you need to also utilize the project, change your life in there is what matters, because many of the times people get the monies and just become bosses and others become rich without necessarily first becoming rich in there, and because you cannot really become rich with only 1 million just by consuming. That is where I really want to say people must make sure that issues of mindset is given key interest, and that's where people also really must make sure they work towards changing their livelihoods. At the end of the day, that would also remain good for them. And now speaking during the closure of the project in Arua City last Friday, Mr. Noel Alabi, the Supreme Consortium Program Manager, said with the funding we reached also that's about 27,372 direct refugees and 1,000 participants whom organized in 7 groups, and we also really benefited from we also benefited them with also really issues of mindset change in now. That's where I really want to say we need to make sure that these projects have an impact on the society. We need to not leave these also projects, because at the end of the day, after some time, impact assessment will also be done on these projects, and that is where maybe the funders also will be able to also extend a hand also for the projects to continue in there. But now, as a citizen, if at all these projects come to you and you remain the way you are, the funding is going to be cut, and that's where the rest who will also want to benefit under the same project also wouldn't get the opportunity. Now the 4-year project was implemented in the district of Omugo, that's another Terego district, of Bongi, Moyo and Madiokolo, where these projects also we are being implemented, and the project was funded by consortium of European Union and other partners also in which also budgeted with about that is 11 million US dollars, which I must say is quite huge, some amount that can really change somebody's life if at all the person utilizes the project very well in there, because all this is actually meant to benefit the people who are behind in there. And that is where I want to applaud the partners, and also really want to encourage them to come back and give more to the people of Western Sub-Region, because we need to ensure that all as the refugees are benefiting, the host communities also really are benefiting as well. Today you will realize that many of the host community members have actually both directly or indirectly benefited from that projects, and many of the projects that are being implemented in the host refugee community members in there. And now leaving that aside, talking about the rift that we didn't see at UIA, now we are seeing Uganda Investment Authority's Mukiza accused Anite of fabricating lies against Dubai Prince, a UK High Commissioner, is another story that we are seeing on the papers this morning. This is on the Nile Post, where the Uganda Investment Authority Director, that is General Robert Mukiza, has put the State of Minister for Investment, Evelyn Anite, on the spot for misinterpreting and misrepresenting a meeting also with the British High Commissioner to Kampala that never also really was, and also orchestrating high harassment against Dubai Prince, that is Sheikh Mohammed Juma Al Maktoum. And the July 23rd, also 2024 letter making rounds is copied, that's President Museveni The principal private secretary, the minister of finance, UIA board chairman, the attorney general, and all the UIA staff who received the honorarium also payments, and the minister also directed should be also refunded, which the minister directed should be refunded. And Mukiza thanked the minister for peddling also really several lies also in there. But how exactly should this also be termed as a lie? Because this rift has also been declared in there. But how do you make sure that this matter is addressed? And if at all this also got the money in through maybe corrupt means, how should they also deal with this matter? And that's also where it becomes very much important for us to understand. At the end of the day, this is also where now people who are responsible for investigating the matters also should also make sure that they do so, because if at all they are not going to investigate these matters, then that would also become very, very much bad in there. Mukiza said the letter that also after being asked to receive the Dubai Prince, and he also accompanied him to also Heroes Day celebrations where he was given an award. This didn't also argue well with the minister, and something which we did see also happened. And now the UAE Director General also accused the minister of lying that that she had personally also met with the UK High Commissioner to Uganda, who had directed also that the money be refunded in there. And now Mukiza explains that it is common knowledge that generally also the United Kingdom embassies across the world don't involve themselves in the micromanagement projects by also the UK, and in particular the British High Commissioner's office doesn't also at all interfere the day-to-day also the running of the projects funded by the United Kingdom Export Finance in there. And that is where the issue also really continues to arise in there, and we shall be keeping you informed if at all there's any development in relation to that. But to keep that aside, now let's move in Terego district, where 3 civil servants are in trouble over social media misuse, and that is something also we are seeing happening in Terego district, as 3 civil servants in the districts also have been questioned by security over allegations of misusing their social media handles in there. Now an animal doctor and 2 teachers also allegedly posted statements that were defamatory and inciting the public to demonstrate in there. Now the production officer of Mugo sub-county, that is Stephen Chandia, was arrested 2 weeks ago and detained at Terego Central Police Station of Mugo and later taken to Arua government prisons for further questioning in there. Now Chandia reportedly also posted a message on social media, also inciting people to rise against the security in Terego district, also for allegedly failing to probe alleged irregular also recruitment process of staff and other issues already in the district in there. But how do we make sure that such matters not arise? Were the process transparent? Was the process also really very much transparent? If at all, yes, what happened and what exactly went wrong is something also really which we must now give interest also really investigate in there. And that is one thing also really which I feel I need to talk about, and that's where we are saying people must also desist from tendencies of misusing their maybe there are so many handles. But today, with the issue of rampant corruption, people feel the easiest way to also really pin the responsible officials over issues of corruption is actually social media. But we are saying have your evidence if at all you are to do so, because at the end of the day you have freedom of expression, you have freedom of also really using any means of communication that you choose to use, because if at all you have the evidence after being dragged to court, still you can defend yourself, and that is where you can be a free man. But we are saying much as you do not have the evidence, please avoid tendencies of also really pinning people without evidence that will also landing in trouble in there. Now also the teacher is also in the case where Francis Ngufindru, a teacher from Onzua Primary School in Leju Town Council, and Geoffrey Alitia, a teacher of Origin and one Progressive Secondary SS, were released on police bond over allegations of defamation also in there, together with also the officer of Terego, and the accused also Eric Alema, a businessman in a rural city, of posting a statement linking him to the group also carrying assassinations of people without proof, and filed a case also of reference under number that is 06/01/07/2024 at also Awindiri police post in there. And that is something also we did see happening. And Litia Geoffrey, the 3 testified in self-recorded statement before the police that he committed the crime under the alleged influence from Mr. Francis Ngufindru, also in there. And Alitia also further alleged that the legislator in Terego district, currently also wanted by the police people, also police people pays people who tarnish the image of the complainant between 50,000 and also 100,000, depending on the strength of the post in there. And that is where we are saying issues of politics must be kept aside in service delivery, much as we are saying politics is not involved in this issue, but we're saying indirectly it should also be having a hand. That is where we're saying, why must you also bring on issues of politics in relation to the issues of service delivery, because in one way or the other, I must say, service delivery is going to be impeded if at all people do not also really maybe understand the issues of also really working together in there. And that is one thing also where we say people must avoid tendencies of themselves getting involved in certain issues in there. And now, although West Nile Regional Police Person Josephine Anguchi did not give any clear details, she promised to get back after being briefed by the CID office in there. Now the RDC of the area, that's Ikowa Festus, has confirmed the two arrests and warned the public also against misusing their phones also in there, because you may do your work just simply through using this phone, but the same phone also can land you in jail. And that's where we are saying people must ensure responsible usage of the smartphones, because what you're doing in just maybe 30 seconds may have an impact on somebody's entire life, and also may also have a likely impact on somebody's life for life, because what you're going to do or what you're going to be saying is going to be kept for life. And that is where, at the end of the day, the person's future and coming generations still will be able to know for somebody for what the person may not have done. And that's where we're saying issues of also maybe misusing the social media must be given keen interest. And that's where the Computer Misuse Act of 2023 is actually in place, and it is actually there to handle all these issues. And information is a public also or broadcast which is likely to injure, identifiable also really person's reputation, also diminishing the respect he or she also really says enjoys before members of society. And that's where we are saying people must avoid issues of misusing social media, and rather they must use it for the right channels, because there are opportunities that also lie within social media, where today we have people who are calling themselves as influencers. We are seeing them also really getting a lot of money. What about the bloggers? All these are people who are using social media rightly, and that's where I want to encourage avoid issues of misusing social media to insult, to do other bad things, inciting violence. All these are bad usage of social media. We must use social media for the right activities, for doing religious work, because we have also who have huge following just because they are doing what is good and also to change society just through also really what we call religious preachings, and they are doing well. And others are really misusing it for doing bad activities, to insult, to post bad videos. All this is very bad, and all this must stop, because at the end of the day, we are saying social media must be used rightly, because under the Computer Misuse Act, that is how it may also catch up with you, and that's where we are leaving that discussion in relation to the Computer also Misuse Act and also social media misuse aside. And we also pray, and now justice already should be served under this matter in here. If at all the people are innocent, they should be freed. If at all maybe they are also found guilty, then there are responsible stakeholders also really should do what it takes to really make sure this matter is resolved in there. Now, we are not going to leave that aside, and now let's move in elsewhere. Now, that's in Buganda, where church braces for the tight security as Buganda prepares to celebrate the 31st years of the Kawaka of Buganda in there. And that's something also we are seeing on the papers this morning, where the Anchor Church of Uganda, that's under St. Paul's Cathedral Namirembe, is bracing for heightened security ahead of celebrations to mark the first years since the coronation of Buganda Kingdom. That's where we did see King also Ronald Mutebi II also being crowned in there. That's also according to authorities. Information authorities have also confirmed. And now this is also an activity, I must say, always that comes with a lot of issues and a lot of numbers, because as people go for this activity, and then we always see numbers coming for this people, because Buganda Kingdom is actually quite huge, and every time people feel they need to be part of that engagement and they need to be part of that activity. And now we are saying people are now, the church more so is now bracing for the heightened security, where we are likely to see heavy deployment, where we have likely to see traffic jam across all the areas, because at one time I was able to solely see that activity and I was able to solely attend that activity, but I must say the road which I was able to lose was a bit congested, where we were able to solely take long period of time on the road, and that is how busy the day is always. And we are saying this activity is now going to be also taking place, where over 4,000 to 5,000 people are expected also to be as guests as part of this activity, because many of them also sometimes come out of the country and they feel they need to be part of this activity. And today we also seen the Kawaka still not being well, where he has just been returning from Namibia, where he has been undergoing treatment, and now he has returned back in the country. after also Namibia failing to extend the visa in there. Now the kingdom also recently came out and said that they did not also really want the visa extension in there, but now they are come. Is the king going to be part of the celebrations? Because for about also some time now we have not seen him also being part of that activity in there, and this would also mean an engagement for him to also encounter with his subjects, and this is going to be an opportunity for him to also meet with his subjects, and something which I say also the people of Uganda must also be preparing for and must also be waiting for, because many times they should also have been waiting for that opportunity. Now it is going to be returning, and I believe at the end of the day that would also be very, very much well for them. And that is something also where within Sich Housing, the church also said will also accommodate about 1,500 guests, while the rest of the people also will be also following the proceedings on outside giant screens, where that's to public address systems also intense in there, and that is where the church may not be in position to also accommodate everybody. And this is actually a tradition which I've seen is quite picking up, where the church may not be in position to also accommodate all. We see one thing. We see where screens can be put also for other people outside to follow on the proceedings of what is going on inside the churches, which is really the benefit of artificial also intelligence, with also the advantage of what we call development technology, something which I feel is very, very much paramount, and something also which is quite good. And now Buganda's 36th king also ascended to the throne on July 31st of the year 1993, who by then, where he was about 27 years old after the kingdoms, and this was only after 27 years after the kingdoms had been burned by the former president, that is Premier Milton Obote in there, and this also got restored in the regime of now President Museveni, and that's something also where we did see are happening. And now that is something also we shall be following, and previous coronation adversaries have mostly also been held in Budo, a place in Wakiso district famed also for ancient Buganda cultural leaders, and this year also we are going to be following out on where exactly this will be going. And kingdom authorities say when this event will be in form of Thanksgiving, and some sources say the Buganda also told Monitor that the king also chose the cathedral, since authorities were not also certain if the Kawaka would make a public presence in there, and that is something also we are following up on. And last month of July, Kawaka Mutebi returned to Uganda from Namibia, where he had been also undergoing treatment for over 3 months, and now he returned back to the country. In now Buganda is considered Uganda's largest kingdom, and that is where also we are going to be also seeing that. And also we have our kingdom also in the other places in Western Sub-region. We have the Little Kingdom, we have the Ringa Kingdom coming up, we also have many others also really arising. But how do you make sure all this also really mean to the subjects? Because these kingdoms, I believe, have done a lot of issues in terms of promoting cultural heritage, in terms of also really making the cultural identity, because many times if at all you lack a sense of identity, that is where at the end of the day you will be wanting to camouflage as a European, you would want to sort of camouflage as a culture of a culture where you do not belong to. We are saying all these cultural institutions which got restored in the year 1993 by President Museveni are actually quite good, and today we see issues activities also happening in Lao Kingdom. We are able to sort of see them also recently doing them is something which I must say is quite amazing. And actually Kingdom also have their own. All this is quite good. And what about our Karamoja Pond? They still have a unique kind of culture, and all these cultural institutions and also heritages must be promoted. And how exactly are these to be promoted? It is actually through what we call the cultural leaders. This is why it becomes quite important. Unfortunately, where also it happens in some places, we are seeing a lot of this also fights happening within the leaders on who exactly is to become a leader. That is where I want to say the emerging also really cultural institutions should pick a leaf from those that already existed. We have Toro Kingdom, we have also the Buganda, we have Bunyoro. All these are there for the ones that are emerging to also pick a leaf from, because if at all they are not picking a leaf from, then definitely that is something also at the end of the day that would also not be quite well. And I feel at the end of the day that would also really make it not good for them in terms of also really making sure that they also continue to identify themselves as also really for the king in there. And now 31 years of Buganda under Mutebi, what has changed? Many people should be asking those questions, and his reign has also being marked by some achievements and challenges already, with demand for much also cherished also what we call federal system remaining a dream. And remember, for quite a long period of time, Buganda Kingdom has been demanding for a federal kind of governance, where they feel their matters should be done by them, where also they need to also be a state of their own under the federal system, which has not also yielded fruits in there. Now today, Kabaka Mutebi, Mwenda Mutebi also marks also 31 years on the throne, an important also really moment in Buganda Kingdom, whose history also spans over 800 years, and that is how old that kingdom in there. Now with the recent controversies triggered by the prolonged stay in Germany and Namibia, also already where he sought medical treatment, the monarch is also already poised also to reaffirm his call for unity among his subjects in there. Now that's where people are worried. Will the king also already appear before them? Will he not appear? These are questions already that continue to linger in the minds of the subjects. I mean the people of Buganda Kingdom, also the Baganda in general, who are there, and then those who are also subscribing to the ideas of also the Buganda culture in there, because today we have so many people who have also incorporated the ideas and the cultures of Buganda Kingdom by simply staying in there, and that's where we're saying it's not criminal, but we must also really not forget where we come from. If I'm a Lubara, I'm a Lubara. If I'm a Kakwa, I'm a Kakwa. Even if I speak the language also of that side also in there, but I shouldn't also forget where I come from, and that's how important it is. And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day that would also be of great importance for us in there, and that is where we're here. We need to also keep you informed of what exactly continues to happen in the society, and how exactly this will be impacting on the society also is where it becomes very much important. And that is where we want to say congratulations to the king and the people of Buganda as well, because as from Western sub-region, where we do have our kingdoms, the Alur kingdom is in place, we do have the Lugbarakari also in place. We join hands also to congratulate that is our people also in Buganda kingdom, because definitely also we must stay together, because unity is actually paramount irrespective of where we come from. We must still stay together, and that is where today it is not a crime for me to go and marry somebody from Buganda. It is not a crime for Buganda to come and marry from Alur Kingdom. And one example is today the minister now that is in the names of Fiona Nyamtoro, who is actually going to be married by a Buganda from Masaka in there. This is what we want to see people relating very well, and at the end of the day, that is something also really that may also be of great importance for us in there, because when we talk about unity, one of the activities that actually promotes unity is intermarriages, and intermarriages are never bad, but we must say we shouldn't forget our roots. Forgetting our roots is actually one thing we must also really avoid as we get move on, because if I'm a Lubara, I will still continue to remain a Lubara. If I'm an Alur from Pakwaks, let's say, I will still remain that Alur, and I will never change. And that is how exactly it is. Even if I move and stay in London, I go and stay in Germany, still I remain Warom, let's say, I may remain as who I am. Definitely, that is something also really at the end of the day we must always stick to. We must stick to our norms, we must stick to our values, and that is how important it is, and that's where we come to the end of the first hour. This is still a KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV. We are live on StarTimes channel 477, and also already online on Zuku, that is on 0073, and not forgetting the social media handles, where we are there on YouTube, we are there on Facebook, we are there on TikTok, and the rest of the social media handles. And all you need to do is have internet connected on your phone, and you watch us anytime on the KOKOLIRIKO live show. We are going to be taking a short commercial break, and when we return back, we shall be checking through on some of your comments on some, and also on your insights and what you feel you need to know, and also where you should be able to tell us where you're watching us from and what exactly you feel we need to discuss in the second hour. For now, we are taking this short commercial break that will be ushering us with more topics. Stay tuned as we return back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
The Miss Uganda 2024 Grand Finale is here! 28 finalists, one crown. On Saturday, 3rd of August at 8 p.m. Sheraton Hotel. Two Ugandan beauty will be spiced up with glamour and entertainment from the legendary Maddox Matimba, the popular Abe Kabad, and Jackie Chandiru. The show will broadcast live exclusively on Makula Chika on Star Times at 8 p.m. Come, let's celebrate Ugandan beauty. Sponsored by VNA, Alemzed, Comform, Nanjing Hotel, Kira Motors, Sheraton, Uganda Airlines, and lead sponsors Dress Textiles and U Home. Miss Uganda 2024, True Ugandan Beauty.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region. West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
The Miss Uganda 2024 Grand Finale is here! 28 finalists, one crown. On Saturday, 3rd of August at 8 p.m. Sheraton Hotel. Two Ugandan beauty will be spiced up with glamour and entertainment from the legendary Maddox Matimba, the popular Abe Kabad, and Jackie Chandiru. The show will broadcast live exclusively on Makula Chika on Star Times at 8 p.m. Come, let's celebrate Ugandan beauty. Sponsored by VNA, Alemzed, Comform, Nanjing Hotel, Kira Motors, Sheraton, Uganda Airlines, and lead sponsors Dress Textiles and U Home. Miss Uganda 2024, True Ugandan Beauty.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from that short commercial break. We are 3 minutes after 8 o'clock, and it's a great pleasure having you on board and still watching West Nile TV and talking about the issues that have been dominating the stories this morning. You cannot be running away from the anti-graft protests that actually started in the country's central region, but we did see them also spreading like bushfire in the places already in there, not sparing Arua City as well. And in Lango sub-region, we also really able to see some strikes which police was able to foil in there. And this was as a result of a statement made also really by one of the ministers in there, something that didn't go on well with some of the women in the area. But now we are seeing, in relation to what happens nationally, that is in relation to the march to parliament, 4 more anti-graft protesters have been granted bail, and that's where also we want to begin off our second hour with. But we are saying, why must you wait for lawyers to now represent you to ask for bail? And yet you can also really still do other things from the comfort of your home, also, or maybe from the comfort of anywhere. That's certainly something which we are seeing on the past morning. And now the Nakawa Chief Magistrate Court has yesterday also really bailed 4 more youths accused of participating in last week's anti-corruption march to parliament protests. And now these people have been also really granted bail. Now, presiding Chief Magistrate Rita Kedasa Nyome has released also the group pending also hearing the case at a later date also in there. That means it is not over for them. And where the magistrate also did say, I find the security substantial and the suspects also really have fulfilled the requirements for bail. I hereby release the accused persons on the following conditions. Each of the suspects is also ready to execute a cash bail of 20,000, while the security is also really bounded at a non-cash bond of 500,000. That's also really according to Nuembe in there. But exactly how do we see this happening? And among the persons who actually got arrested is one of our colleagues that is in the media fraternity, and those who actually got bail is a 20-year-old Faiza Salima, one of the presenters on KFM India, Thomas Kanzira, 28-year-old, Bernard Olpot Ewalu, 39-year-old, and 25-year-old Edgar Balo also really Hamala in there, and now that's something also we did see happening in there. Now court declined to release 40-year-old Aljab Musinguzi on bail, also reasoning that the introduction letter presented from the local council is different from also his area of residence in there. That means he has to sleep for more days in also the courts in the prison cells in there. But how exactly will this also meaning? Because courts of law also really allow people to be brought. That is before court also within the 24 hours in there, but now 48 hours at most also in there. And that's where, if at all they not also have maybe the right issues, then that is where they can also be also denied bail in there. But now the court has declined to sort of give the man bail upon also having differences in areas of introduction, and then also where he resides. In another trial magistrate also dropped, that is the charge of being idle and disorderly living, also the suspects with only one charge of common nuisance in there. And that is where you must avoid being nuisance and also being termed also hooligans in there. And that's something also which we did see happening. And now this was after prosecution led by Dorin Elima presented the amended charge sheet, reasoning that it was an introduction from the Director of Public Prosecutions to have also the charge sheet amended, dropping the charges also really, that's also really against the suspects in there. But now, why exactly did this go wrong? Because to demonstrate, really, I do understand it is actually provided for under the laws in the 1995 Constitution. It's actually there. And then the rest of the laws, the penal code and the other laws sorry, that are in place, also will talk about the right demonstrate, because if at all somebody feels a certain thing maybe not done rightly, they have the mandate of doing so, and that's where at the end of the day it becomes unfair for such individuals to be arrested. But how exactly should be this matter also be handled? And now grounds for bail included that suspects involved also in a bailable offense, having no criminal record and substantial sureties, and that is something also we did see. And according to the charge sheet, prosecution states also that Kanzira, Salima Olpot, Hamala Musinguzi, and others still at large on July 23rd of 2024 at Oasis Mall, Nakumat in Kampala district, did an act also of gathering together while shouting Anite Among must resign, and littering also the placards bearing the same words outside Oasis Mall, Nakumat, thereby causing also the annoyance, obstruction, and inconvenience to the public in the exercise of common rights. And who exactly are these people that came out and also say that these people are complaining? This is something also which I felt I need also to understand. While more than 100 we are also jailed over the protest Buganda Road Court on Monday, granted bail to at least 15. And that is something also where the demonstrators had been also held over the march to Parliament, and this is where the people wanted to move that to Parliament and also express their grievances in there. Now more have also been granted bail, but we are saying the matter also should be dealt also with, and that's where if at all the people are corrupt, then the responsible authorities must do what it takes to also make sure that those people who are accused of corruption also really have the questions solely answered, because if at all they're not also answered the question, then that would also be very, very much bad for those anti-corruption fighters in there, because they feel at the end of the day they also deserve to be heard, and that's where also hearing their cries is very, very much important. And talking about the anti-graft protests in Arua City, we did see security setting off, that is the central police station areas and the Arua City authorities for that day, where a planned group of young people on the 25th of the month also planned to move, that is to the city hall, to protest against the Speaker of Parliament and then the rest of the officials in Uganda who are corrupt. But we need to see heavy deployment taking place in Arua City, because for these anti-graft protesters, theirs was supposed to be on 23rd in Arua City. They scheduled theirs to take place on 25th of the month of this month in here, and that is something that didn't go on. And I really feel at the end of the day, now the responsible institutions that have been established need to do their work and need to also come out and explain to these people who are protesting that these people are either corrupt or they're not corrupt, because we expect to hear from them. We have so many institutions that have been established in place. I wouldn't wish to mention them one by one, but I'm saying we have quite many that are actually there today, but we need to see them also really exercising their duties. We need to feel that they're doing their work, because these people have already pinned them. What remains is carrying out investigations, because at the end of the day, if at all investigations are carried and thorough scrutiny is done, people who are responsible must be arrested, because they will have MPs who are behind bars. And this is actually one proof that anybody can be arrested. There's nobody above the law. But issues of fighting corruption shouldn't also really be left to one person. And now, recently, the head of state of Uganda, His Excellency Dr. Museveni, actually came out and said he has now had enough evidence that corruption has been going on in Uganda, more so amongst the ministries and also different places in there. But now he said he's going to be fighting corruption, and that is also something where we did see some people also really being arrested. But how exactly will that also really be meaning, and how exactly that should that also really be also really done with? Because we need to understand that this matter also really should be given a hand, also really a listening ear to understand how exactly this also really will be going on, because we need proper scrutiny, we need thorough understanding of the whole matter in there. And now that is one thing also really at the end of the day, where the young people also really will be feeling that at least their concerns have either been heard or have been neglected. And how exactly should this also mean? Definitely we are leaving that also into the hands of you, the viewer. Feel free to drop your comment in there, and I will be in place to go through it later on. And now a man has been arrested over raping a 104-year-old woman in Fort Portal. But really, what is happening in the society? That is something also we are asking ourselves this morning, because how do you rape a person of 104 years old? I must say this is a person who is twice to be your grandmother, because a person of that age of 104 years, the world is moving astray, and that is something also really which I feel is very much bad. And now police in Fort Portal City have detained a 20-year-old male resident of Kwabire Cell in Nyakakotoli Parish in Karawunda Sub-County on allegations of raping a 104-year-old woman from the same area. Imagine a 20-year-old man raping a 104-year-old grandmother. Because I believe this is a grandmother, this is not a woman now, something also which I feel at the end of the day we need to give also the keen interest to, because at the end of the day, if at all we not also give keen interest to, because it becomes unfair. Because really at a 20-year-old, we expect you to get somebody at least of 18, 19 or 20 years past, because at 20 years old, we not expect you to go past. But we are really seeing the opposite of something also happening in there, and this is how it becomes ironic, because a 20-year-old, maybe we could say commit a defilement, but it's doing the opposite, but really raping a 104-year-old. This is twice to be your grandmother times 2, because really, if your grandmother is 60 years old and then somebody is 104, this is quite unfortunate. I don't know what happens. Really, this is where the issues of society needed to be checked, and this is where society members must also really be assessed on what exactly they are doing. And moving away from in that area, Rwenzori West Regional Police Spokesperson Vincent Wesije said the incident occurred at around 3 a.m. on Sunday in one of the classrooms at 3-star Nursery Primary School, where they said the young man also really went on to harvest the 104-year-old. Really something which I must say is quite unfortunate, but we must make sure these issues shouldn't also continue to happen, because at the end of the day it goes back, because this is a curse. This is already a curse also to our people also in there, because if at all as a young man you are sleeping with a person of 104 years old, what are you going to really do with that kind of person also in there? Now Bambale told Monitor that he had also heard the victim appealing for help, although he also first thought the incident was happening outside, also really what we call within the school premises in there. And that is where we did see the young man being arrested from. And when I reached the classroom, I touched this and I touched and saw the man raping the old woman also in there. And as the suspect and asked how the suspect could have also accessed the school, the security guard also said he had forgotten to lock the classroom in there. But now who exactly and whose mistake is that? Both the victim and the security personnel must be held responsible, because how do you forget to lock the classroom? Could there be some connivance, or could there be also really that this was not the first time this young man was raping this old woman here? Really, these are things we need to understand, because I believe I'm of a feeling that this could have been the 40th day of this young man who could have been also drilling this young old woman here. But how do you make sure these matters do not go on? Because at the end of the day, we are saying these matters shouldn't happen, because really it is quite ironic. It really is quite embarrassing at the same time. I really feel this man should be arrested and brought before book. And asked how the suspect also could have accessed, that's where we did see. And now TSJ said a rape case had been registered at Kararunga Police Post on Tuesday against the young man in that's something else we did see. And under the Ugandan law, rape can also really attract extreme punishment, including that is a lifetime in jail. But we're saying he's still a young man, a lesser settlement also really should also be given to him in there. But with keen punishment, and also a punishment that is also going to pull his ears, because as a young man of 20 years, we do not expect you to really sleep with a 104-year-old, and that is how it becomes quite unfortunate. And still relatedly, a court convicts 7 Chinese for drilling Ruera wetland is another story we are seeing on the past morning. Remember, government of Uganda has embarked on a move that is to restore and also protect the wetland as a result of environment, also the backlash in there, because recently we did see the climate also changing, which is actually posing a lot of also issues to the environment. And now a court has sentenced 7 Chinese nationals over moving sand out of, that is also the Luera wetland. In a court in Kampala on Tuesday convicted 7 Chinese nationals for drilling Luera wetland in central Uganda, and now the group also was convicted upon its own plea of guilty, also although they had previously also pleaded not guilty, reasoning that they were also just tourists in there. But how exactly did this forget the license of moving into the wetland to also really pull sand out of that? That's something also we need to understand. And on Tuesday they appeared before also for hearing for bail application before also really the Machindi-based Chief Magistrate Court on, and that's of Standard Soil Unit Utilities and Wildlife, presided by Gladys Kamasanyu. That is something also we did see happening, where the convicts are Liang Cheng Hu, we do have Wei Wen Hu, and we do have Liang Cheng Xiang, we do have Hu Dong Su, and we do also have, that is Sigong Zhu, as well as Gezing Liang and Wang Pianchung. And these are the names I do understand also really, definitely for those who know Chinese, definitely must also be understanding. I must have pronounced the names very well in there. And they pleaded guilty to the charges of conspiracy and disturbing wetlands solely by drilling contrary to the Ugandan law, and now the convicts are now also really await their sentence to be presented before them. In an earlier prosecution led by Judith Nyamwenza, presented also an amended charge sheet, also adding that the count of conspiracy to drill Ruera wetland with the involvement of WQ Company Limited was also opened up against them. In now, Nyamweza asked court to give the convicts a deterrent sentence following their actions solely towards the Ruera wetlands in there, because as a foreign national, we not expect to see you behind bars, because this is quite unfortunate, because we expect you to act as an investor, we expect you to act as a citizen in the country, other than involving yourselves in bad activities which are against our laws, because of issues of wetland encroachment, we are seeing issues of like flooding happening in the country, more so in central Uganda, around areas of Boise today. That area has actually been termed as disaster prone just because of the encroachment on wetlands. And many people have established buildings, their hotels that I should say are on the wetland as well in there, but how exactly did they find their licenses to establish themselves in there is something also which I feel at the end of the day needed to be investigated. In another, Chief Magistrate Kamasanyu further remanded the convicts until July 31st for further sentencing in there. Now prosecution said that on July 8th as of 2024, we did see at Kamuunga village in Magezi, Kijungu, in Lukaya Town Council, Kalungu district, these people were also really arrested for that incident in there. But how exactly should this matter also be addressed? And further, that the group carried out legal activities without the approval of National Environment Management Authority, abbreviated as NEMA, which is the body responsible for protecting the environment in Uganda, and which body, I must say, survived being moved under Ministry of Environment recently. That is in the mergers, but now we are seeing it also really as an independent also entity, which we must also support in terms of protecting the environment, because issues concerning the environment remain key and they remain paramount for us to solely work towards in there, because issues of environment affect us all, and to protect the environment is not only an sole person's responsibility, but rather our environment, also our role as all citizens to make sure that we work towards the protection of the environment. And the 7 Chinese nationals we are also arrested by National Environment Management Authority together with Uganda Police, also the Environment Police, also in that operation against the restoration of the wetlands in there. That is something also which I feel I need to also talk about, because if at all we don't talk about it, then definitely we may see people still lingering and also lagging behind in terms of sort of making sure that the environment is protected, because to protect the environment must start with me, must start with you, and then moves that is to everybody. And that's where the issues of environment protection, the messages must be carried by each and everybody. We must make sure at least everybody is protected in terms of environment protection in there. Now let's leave that aside. Innocent Museveni turns terror suspect number 36 is another story we are seeing on the papers morning, where a man in the names of Innocent Museveni, a 38-year-old, that's also the electrician from Rukungiri district, was yesterday charged also alongside alongside 35 other Forum for Democratic Change Party members before a court also in Kampala. Now the group was recently deported from Kisumu City in western Kenya, appeared before Nakawa's chief magistrate also and was charged after being also trained in terrorist activities in there. They were not also allowed to plead also to the charges, since terrorism is a capital offense that is tried in Luziria and the High Court prison, and now they are remanded to Luziria Government Prison until August 13th of the month in there. That's something also which we do understand, that people were also recently arrested, and people who are believed to be Forum for Democratic Change Party members who actually moved, that is Tanzania, where they say they were going for training, a training that needed no disturbance, but according to information from Tanzania, they were actually arrested from there, and then later on deported to Uganda, and now they have also been remanded. And one person who actually picked the interest and also the attention of many people is the man in the names of Innocent Museveni, who is actually one of those suspects has been arrested in there. Now several FDC party members from the Katonga faction, also including the interim party president Elias Lukwago and Kira municipality member of parliament Ibrahim Semujunganda, we are present also in court to follow the proceedings in here. Now Dr. Kiza Besje, the four-time presidential candidate on the FDC ticket, in a statement also via his ex-handle claimed that the members whom he referred as colleagues had traveled also to Kisumu on July 23rd for a week-long leadership workshop, and he said Uganda's immigration and security personnel duly cleared the group, and the publication also was unable to immediately cross-check these claims by the time this also story was published in that. That's something also we do understand that also needed also thorough investigation. Now that, but Dr. Kiza Besje, on the other hand, also said night also the Kweli Pastoral Development Center in Kisumu, where the team also had booked in and were violently attacked, and the doors are being broken into before the group was brutally arrested in there, something which they feel the rights of these individuals were also violated in there. Now the center that is about 4.5 kilometers off Kisumu City presides itself as the budget stay. That's for the people to also undergo their training in there. Now Dr. Kiza basically said the group was lawfully invited to Kenya and entered lawfully, and that the place also they were also to hold the workshop was lawfully engaged to, and now the monitor also was unable to verify the narrative put across by Dr. Kiza Besje by press evening of last time in there. But how do we make sure these matters must also be dealt with, because these people were arrested and they were brought to Uganda, and somebody could be interested in understanding and also wanting to know some of the names of these people who were also already arrested in there. And if I can briefly maybe mention some of the names, we do have Samuel Makoka, who is 45-year-old. We have Samuel Ruatokonda, who is about 46 years old. We have Dr. George Akelo Ekwaro, a 50-year-old. We do have Charles Nkonge, 33-year-old. We do have Paul Kawangu, who's 42-year-old. We do have Nasruddin Basal, 38-year-old. We do have Latif Waiswa Maido, 35-year-old. Charles Bukenya Luanga, 28-year-old. Katimikire Mbago Buinza, a 42-year-old, and many other names who have actually been arrested in the totaling of that 36 names in here. And I wouldn't also be in position to mention all those, and still talking about back what's happening in the world of environment. NFA staff arrested over illegal felling of trees is another story that we are seeing on the past this morning as we get summarize our first half of the second hour, and this is where we are going to be also dealing with this story. And now 6 workers from the National Environment Authority office in Kalangala district have been arrested for Mr. Minding illegal logging. That is in Kubanda Forest Reserve. This is quite unfortunate and also really quite unrealistic as well, because you are working with National Forest Authority. We expect you to be in the lead of protecting the forest reserves. We expect to be in the lead of protecting the environment, because if at all you are going to be also really engaging in cutting down trees, and then definitely many people are also going to be passing through you, and that is already corruption. And one of the areas which I feel must be investigated is actually corruption in these institutions, and that's something also which I feel at the end of the day must also be addressed in there. Now the suspects include Kalangala District NFS Sector Manager, the man in the name, the Mugoye Forest Supervisor, and forest patrollers who have been arrested in Anan. According to the Southern Regional Police spokesperson Twaha Kasire, the arrest took place last Thursday after an inspection of Rubanda Forest Reserve. That is by Miss Eve Mwesigwa, the Kalangala District Environment Officer, police officer team, and they witnessed the extent of the forest destruction. And that's something also which we are saying the people who are responsible for taking care of the environment must make sure they are the ones protecting, and they must be in the lead of protecting the environment. Other than that, we are going to be seeing them also engaging in bad activities that would also, at the end of the day, undermine the efforts by government in protecting the wetlands and the environment as well. And that's something also which we must also preach and we must say should be given keen interest and should be also given a listening ear in terms of in protecting the environment in there. Now the locals accuse them of being behind the illegal tree cutting in Rubanda Forest Reserve near Mutambala landing site, that is in Mugoye sub-county, according to Kasire. And now during a meeting at Mutambala landing site, the site also convened by Ms. Mwesiga Nakesa, residents accused NFA workers of destroying forest and also shifting the blame onto them, and that's something also where the issue of blame game is never right. And during a meeting at Mutambala, that's one thing we did see, and Mr. Sulait Kafero, the Mutambala village chairperson, stated that the earlier month non-residents camped that's in Rubanda Forest Reserve for 2 weeks also already cutting down trees, and however when the residents also went to collect the firewood, NFA workers also arrested them falsely, claiming they were responsible for the logging, and that's something also we did see happening in there. Mr. Rajab Asemakula, the district also really chairperson, noted the Kalangala's forest also cover is rapidly disappearing under the current NFA sector watch, and that's where the leaders from that area who are involved in corruption also really should be interdicted, and in my own opinion should also really be transferred if at all interdictions cannot work. Because really, they are doing a disservice. Forest cover, not only in Kalangala, but the entire country is actually dropping in a steadfast way, because many of the people are now cutting down the trees. And after trees being cut down, there's no effort to restore back the cut down trees. And how exactly is this implying, and how this will also this mean on the trees that have been cut? And then how will this also really impact on the fight against environment protection in India? Because I feel at the end of the day, these entities must work hand in hand or shoulder by shoulder in terms of protecting the environment. That's something also we did see happening, and Mr. Mwisugu announced plans to also instruct ferry and vessel also unfortunate. And at the end of the day, what also the trees will also be provided to us may not be provided by the right. Much as we are saying we need food, but we are saying we also need the environment. Because when we have food and under a bad environment, at the end of the day, that is also not going to be well, and we need the two to work together, and that's where at the end of the day, I feel we need to also talk about. Now, statistics indicate that out of the 31 forest reserves in the area, 17 have already been depleted. And what does this mean to the environment? This is something also we need to understand, because the forest cover is not only affecting what's happening in Kalanga, but the entire also region in there, because definitely if it's rain within Kalangala, then the rains will stretch as far as the neighboring districts in there. And that's where we're saying the issues of environment protection should be everyone's mandate. It should also not be left to one person, shouldn't be left to NFA alone, but we must support NFA in undertaking that cause, and that would also at the end of the day make sure that we reach the dreams in terms of planting trees, in terms of protecting the environment in there. And that is where we're leaving that discussion aside with. But as we get to some other discussions, remember earlier on we also talked about a number of issues. We discussed a number of issues also that continue to happen on the paper this morning, but in a special way I want to thank you and welcome you on board amidst this chilly weather. For those of you who are still home and yet planning to go to work, we are saying you must make sure that you hurry up. And then to the learners who are still home, because I don't know somebody out there could also still be home and yet planning to go to school, this is already time. We must make sure we go to school early, and that's also a reminder to those who are yet to also go on with the other works in there. And that brings us to the end of the first half of the second hour, and that will bring us to the last half, where we are going to be also discussing a number of pertinent issues, and that will only be later on. For now, let's have this quick important breather, and that will also be ushering us into the final half of the show. My name is Salish Majid. Stay tuned as we get back to you shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
The Miss Uganda 2024 Grand Finale is here! 28 finalists, one crown. On Saturday, 3rd of August at 8 p.m. Sheraton Hotel. True Ugandan beauty will be spiced up with glamour and entertainment from the legendary Maddox Sematimba, the popular Abe Kabad and Jackie Chandiru. The Shka on Star Times at 8 p.m. Come, let's celebrate Ugandan beauty. Sponsored by VNA, Alemzed, Comform, Nanjing Hotel, Kira Motors, Sheraton, Uganda Airlines, and lead sponsors Dress Textiles and You Home. Miss Uganda 2024, True Ugandan Beauty.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from the short commercial break and into our last half of today's discussions. It's a Wednesday, and I want to take this opportunity now to welcome you on board from wherever you are watching us from. And as we get to move on with the show, remember earlier on we were able to discuss a number of issues where I was able to also give you a hint of what transpired yesterday during the primary school's MDD contest, which was already won by our Windley Primary School, where we also congratulated them. And we also talked about a number of issues about, first of all, the issues of wetlands encroachment, where 7 Chinese nationals have already been arrested. And earlier on we also talked about the issues related to the traders who have promised to go on strike if at all they did not meet the president, because they were to meet the president yesterday, something that was again deferred to a yet another date that also that will be communicated to them. But now they feel very bad that they want also their matters also to be discussed before the president in there. But now that's something with this happening, and this also promised to also go on with the strike until they meet the president in there. And that's something also really at the end of the day where I feel I need to keep you reminded of as I welcome you on board, in especially from wherever you're watching us from, and to these discussions in here. And this is where we are going to be discussing a number of pertinent issues that continue to happen also really nationally, also internationally, as well as locally, because we also do not keep it also to that level. We also need to understand what is happening at the grassroots, because at the end of the day, our mandate remains to keep you also informed, updated of what's happening across the world. And that's where we are here, and that's really where, as West Nile Television, our #1 goal also remains, that is to enlighten the region. And we are not going to be enlightening the region through only discussing what continues to happen outside the region, but we are saying we must also tackle issues that continue to happen also really across the country. And that's where we also want to welcome you on board. That's also really from also the topics also in there. Now talking about what is happening and talking about MDD, which I did talk to you earlier on about. Now the creatives under the sector have been asked to embrace Swahili language for regional careers in there. That's something also really where we are bringing our last half of the today's discussion with, where Ugandan creatives have been employed to utilize the 4 days of a week opportunity to learn Swahili language. Classes being conducted solely at the Uganda National Cultural Centers, that's the UNCC, to boost solely their career opportunities beyond Uganda. And this is quite good, because sometimes solely we see our people who are under the creatives. And when I talk about the creatives, I mean the musicians, I mean the drama and poets, and also many other people who are within the sector also really of creatives really in there. But sometimes we see them suffering. And recently one musician was able, after really picking up the attention of the whole East African nation, was called to Tanzania and Kenya, but failed to express themselves in English. And this is English, but also really the person was only to speak one language, and which language could not also be gotten by those people inside. And that is how embarrassing the whole scenario was. We are saying, much as we know English, we must solely give priority to now learn Swahili, because Swahili is the language which I feel is the official language of the South African community. And at the end of the day, that is where we must learn the language. And that is where today, if Feta comes and starts greeting you in Swahili, please do not be worried, because still we are saying East African language is Swahili, and that's where the official language becomes that. And we also have our own languages, and that's where he will be also coming with the Liberty News Bulletin at about 9 a.m. And that's where I need to keep you reminded to keep watching West Nile TV as we get to move on with the show. And now Swahili language, also known by its local name Kiswahili, once also already had island also already of dialect of African Bantu tongue, has been spoken also already across the East African borders in areas of Zanzibar, in Kenya, Tanzania, in Uganda also some people speak it. And now Kiswahili is the most spoken language that is in the sub-Saharan African also continent in there. And that's something also which I feel at the end of the day, we must also really embrace their body language, because if at all we do not speak their body language, then definitely many of the times we are going to be lagging behind, and then that will be quite unfortunate. That's solely itakaa baya sana. That's solely where we need to solely speak the language, because at the end of the day we must make sure we speak Kiswahili, and Kiswahili is actually one language that must also unite us, because a Ugandan from Kenya will also really freely speak in the language that also really connects them, and that is Kiswahili, and that's one thing also really which I feel the creatives must take seriously, because for you to sing in Lugbarati alone, it may not make sense. For you to speak alone in Alura alone may not make sense, because it may not cross borders. And just in DRC, we have people who speak Kiswahili, and that is how today many people would not understand the Lingala language find it a bit convenient, most of the business community, to communicate through Kiswahili, and that's how very much important the language is. And I feel at the end of the day we must embrace Kiswahili in our schools, in our societies, and that will be quite well. And Emmanuel Begade, Kiswahili teacher, consultant and coordinator from Kiswahili Teaching and Enhancement Program, also really said they are partnering with National Theatre to see also really plans and actors and artists also learn Kiswahili and start making compositions also really and productions in the language that can enable them also really have a breakthrough at international levels in the end. That is something also which I must say. It's quite good, because you're singing in Lugbarati alone. Your music, will only be consumed by West Nile alone. You want to sing in Alura alone, trust me, your music also really still will be consumed with also in Western Sub-region alone. If at all it crosses borders, it may only remain at the northern Uganda level in there. But we are saying that is not what we want. We want you to sing in Kiswahili, so that also really, if at all you are to perform in Kenya, yes, you raise our flag high, and that will also really be a plus for us as a region, and that will also really make us proud in there. And that's where we're saying those under the creative sector, the musicians, the drama actors, the poets, and everybody who is in line with also what we call the creative industry sector. You must make sure at least you learn Kiswahili, and that's where if at all you're going to be able to speak Kiswahili, at least pick the small ones, incorporate them in your art, and that will also make sure, as somebody who does not know English, somebody who does not know maybe Lugbara, may also really at the end of the day get what you're trying to sing, and maybe get the message, and that is how the beauty of embracing the language would also really be to the benefit of those under the creative sector. And now Kiswahili Class initiative comes at a time when Uganda creative social, including actors, visual artists, and poets, are facing challenges in accessing opportunities also that require proficiency in Swahili language that is across the Ugandan borders. And now Ugandan productions are thus mainly consumed within the country, and now the people feel for them to cross boundaries. Because many times you see people acting in Lusoga, you see people acting in Luganda, you see people acting in Lubara, but how do they make sure that they cross the borders, if at all areas where people cannot be able to speak English or understand English can also be benefiting from them? Because we want to see the content be consumed by the entire East African nation and the entire East African community. And how possible can that be? It is actually through what we call embracing Kiswahili in there. And that's where I want to implore all those people within the sector, within Western Sub-region, and to my artists also who are here. We are saying, if at all we want to cross the international borders, Kiswahili is the way to go. And that's something also we do understand, because in South Sudan, you find people speak Kiswahili. In Kenya, the people speak Swahili. In DRC, the people speak Swahili. In Uganda here, the people speak Swahili. In Kenya, you find them. In Tanzania, they are there. In Zanzibar, everywhere, the people speak the language. And why don't we then embrace the language? And that is where also I feel finalizing the formation of East African community with one official language could actually be a benefit to me. And that is how, at the end of the day, we are looking forward at the leaders to also make sure that process is actually streamlined. And that will also make us also really freely. And we want to be brothers, because with Kenyans, we are brothers. Also, we are with the South Sudanese. We are still one. And one language that could also unite us well will be Kiswahili Indian. Mr. Lubega also told the journalists that also the initiative works also with National Theatre, is committed to promote also creatives through that's Kiswahili language, to scale up the regional and international productions to reach wider audiences in there. And that is something also where we are going to be leaving that discussion aside as we are running out of time. And that's something also at the end of the day I feel we need to also talk about, because if at all we don't talk about it, then definitely that would also be very, very much bad. And leaving that aside, 18 schools in Busoga listed for iron sheets to replace asbestos is another story that we are seeing on the past morning. Because talking about asbestos, this has actually been identified as one of the causes of cancer, because the air that comes from the asbestos due to heat sometimes also has been identified as a cause for cancer, and that's where now people are resorting to what we call iron sheets instead of also the asbestos. In at least 18 schools in Soka sub-region have now been listed as to receive the iron sheets to replace asbestos, courtesy of Jinja Municipality, Best Integrated Steel Mills and Uganda Limited, and that is a plus for them. And the development comes after most of traditional schools in Soka sub-region are still stuck with with what we condemned asbestos, which remain also really a health threat to learn also due to heat, also where they get exposed, that is to cancer, also roofing, also in that. Something which I feel is the right time also for government to also come out and support in terms of really replacing the asbestos roofs with the iron sheets, because it has now been identified as a cause of cancer amongst the learners in there. Now, some of the beneficiaries include that's Main Street Primary School, Walukuwa West Primary School, Zibondo Primary School, and all the schools in Jinja City, and College, Wairaka in Jinja District, also among other schools also in there. Now, the head teacher of Zibondo Primary School in Kaldero District, Mr. Alfred Magomba, one of the heads also who sought support to get rid of the asbestos, say they have been experiencing rampant sickness among the learners after the use of also water tapped also from the buildings with asbestos in there. And that's where also they need to make sure that learners do not actually consume the water that is coming from the roofs also really of the asbestos in there, because asbestos has actually been identified as one of those bad roofing materials that also really causes diseases in there. That's something also really I feel at the end of the day is quite good for them to also disease from. And now the director of St. Francis Nazarene Primary School in Jinja City, Miss Florence Wapukulu, said she has also received 21 iron sheets from Integrated Steel Uganda Limited, and appealed to other organizations to also follow the same suit in terms of donating for them the iron sheets in there. Now, Integrated Steel Uganda Limited Public Relations Officer, Mr. Hassan Latifu, said 18 schools have already approached them for iron sheets, although through the district education officers, they already heeded also to their call by donating so far to 18 schools, and that is something also really which I feel I need to also keep you reminded of as we get moving on with the show. We are just left with about that is 17 minutes to wind up with today's discussions that will also be ushering us into the final, also really into the as a news bulletin that is with Feta Emmanuel. But finally, we shall be also looking at what continues to happen internationally, and later on I will be touching also what is happening under also what we call in the world of sports, and I will be touching something in there because now the clubs are very busy in the market, and what exactly are they doing and who has signed who. I will also be letting you know that, and many of the and we can also see excitement amongst the fans of late, where we are seeing also the people buying the club jerseys. It means that we are very soon seeing the return of the various leagues in there. But I will be letting you know where and who exactly is moving from one club to another in there. And that's one thing also I feel at the end of the day I need to keep you reminded of. And according to World Health Organization, exposure to asbestos causes different types of cancers, especially lung, larynx, ovaries, and mesothelioma, while International Labour Organization estimates that at least 1,000 workers die every year also from asbestos-related diseases in there. And that's where we're saying issues of people also really utilizing the asbestos roofs must be also really something that also really should be given keen interest under. That would also really at the end of the day address these issues. And I feel that is one thing also we need to look forward to, and where government of Uganda needs to come out and also really have the roofs of the classrooms only with asbestos roofs also be replaced, because at the end of the day it is exposing the learners to the risk of also contracting the disease in there. That's something also I feel at the end of the day must also be given keen interest to, because if at all we are not doing so, then that would also be quite bad and unfortunate. And that is where at the end of the day that would also really make sure that the learners do not also really have the benefit of also really having a healthy environment in there, because studying under a healthy environment is actually something we must preach for at all times. And leaving that aside, government earmarks 35 billion for new medical interns is another story that we are seeing on the paper this morning, where the health ministry says at least 35 billion has been provided also to pay allowances for the next cohort of medical interns expected to be deployed next month in there. And that's where we see Mr. Kenneth Akiri and the Secretary Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health say the money is for more than 2,000 medical interns and doctors and also nurses, midwives and pharmacists who will be placed to serve in hospitals for a period of 12 months in there, and that's one thing also really is happening. And now Dr. Socrates Odongo, an intern doctor who has been coordinating also the interns, say they are ready for deployment, but emphasize they are not satisfied with the amount of money the ministry will pay them, and that's one thing also they feel is not right for them in there. Now interns demand some of the 2 years back, the medical president of Uganda say the directive also that all interns should be paid half of what the substantive cadre earns. So they want to know whether the ministry will also implement it or not, whether they also want their issues to be forwarded in there. And that's something we see the medical interns already are demanding for. And however, Mr. Akiri said they did not have enough money to implement the presidential directive in there. And that is something also really which we are following up on. And we want to also make sure this matter is also made be heard in there, because the medical interns must support the doctors who are in most cases not enough in there, because we move the hospital facilities, you will realize that there is a gap in also the medical personnel who are serving the people in there. And that's where exactly it becomes very much important for the medical interns who are studying, who are getting experience, also to support the medical also personnel in doing this work in here. Now, Dr. Angel Mirambe, and another medical intern doctor, on the other hand, say there is need to revise that 6-hour work shift for the medical interns, and they are subject to improve efficiency and reduce mental health issues amongst them due to stress resulting from working long hours in there. And that they want the work hours to be reduced. And they spoke during the National Induction for Medical Interns cohort of 2024-2025 in a meeting that took place at Makerere University. And now Dr. Alfred Ruale, the Commissioner also for Health Institutional Capacity Building and Human Resource for Health Development at the Ministry of Health, say the introduction also meeting is intended to transform the medical doctors, nurses, midwives, and pharmacists, and also dentists who have also been going through 5 or 4 years of training. And now that's also to prepare them for the world they are going to be heading to. And I feel at the end of the day, if at all courses were to be treated like this, then we will see people also enjoying school and enjoying also issues, because the medical interns, they are a critical sector where we feel also they must also be given key interest to. And now the training, so in the internship, we are giving also a transition period where the doctors already who are of qualified will be practicing under supervision and the observation also, and it is continuous learning from them, and so that they can also be able to process patients, complaints into a disease product within also which can be treated in there. And that is one thing also which we feel we need to also let you know of. And that is one thing also at the end of the day, we need to see these medical interns placed across all the medical facilities in the country, because I want to see others be placed in Madiokolo at Reno Campus Center. I want to see others be placed, that's at Terego, under the health center, that's being constructed. I want to see more being placed in Yumbe, also in the different health facilities. I want to see them in Zombo, in War, also in different health facilities. And all this is to make sure that the doctors are supported, because many times the doctors may not be everywhere, and that's where at the end of the day such medical interns will be able to do a good job in terms of solely supporting and beefing up that's the medical sector in there, because issues of doctors number has always been a concern, because you look at the ratio of those accessing health facilities compared to those who are to serve them, you always realize there's a gap. And that's where people have always continuously demanded for more recruitments to come. But due to the meager resources, solely, government may not be in position to also make sure each and every person is accommodated solely in the government facilities in there. And that is how at the end of the day, it has been a concern which I feel should now be given a listening ear and also be addressed in there. And that's something also at the end of the day that would be quite well as we get to move on with the show. We just left it about 11 minutes to wind up with the discussions, but also to look at what's happening elsewhere. Leaving that story of medical interns aside, EC boss warns on amending electoral laws ahead of 2026 polls. Remember, as we are getting closer to 2026 general elections, with just about 15 months now, we are still saying electoral reforms have not been done. And now the Electoral Commission boss, that is Justice Simon Biabakama, has come out to warn against any amendments to the existing also electoral laws ahead of the 2025-2026 general elections, because we are in 2024. Very soon, we are going to be entering, already, I must say we're already there, because we are seeing the politicians doing what it takes for them to solely be identified, because many of the times we are seeing them in their areas of jurisdiction and in their areas of target in there. And that's something also that must tell us we need these reforms, because without the reforms, still we are going to be seeing a number of challenges affecting also really the quality of 26 general elections. And now the EC boss has come out to warn, and he issued the warning also on Tuesday, July 10th at Hotel Africana, as he was speaking also at the EC's national workshop for stakeholders on demarcation of electoral areas for the next local government council elections and the reorganization of polling stations which will commence in August of 2024 in there. Remember, the S1 elections have just been postponed for yet another 6 months period after being postponed for another time. But how do you make sure that this issue is addressed, and how exactly should these elections be organized? Because we are seeing these elections not being organized, and this is keeping people illegal in the offices, and that's something also really which I feel must also really be given keen interest. And expect the creation of new entities after 2021 general election and the rise in voter populations necessitated by the EC to conduct a countrywide reorganization of polling stations. And now the EC boss noted that the reorganization of polling stations is crucial and is in line with also the section 33, subsection 1 of the Electoral Election Commission Act, which also really is there. And now reorganizing the elections also really will be also well in a beer. But noted that the next general election, reorganization of polling stations, which include locating polling stations in central places, relocating also really polling stations that we are affected by infrastructure development, and also really splitting polling stations that have more than that's optimum numbers of voters, among others, so really be also conducted under the electoral reforms in there, because many of the areas also really are now going to be facing challenges because some of the areas are going to be witnessing a growth in what we call numbers of people slowly coming up for this election. But how do you make sure that these reforms are done? Because we need the reforms. I really want to say we need the reforms. At the end of the day, that would also really be quite well in there. It's announced that the next general election will take place on January 12th and February 9th of 2026. But candidates solely for presidential, parliamentary, and local government seats will be nominated solely from June to October of 2025 in there. And it's to say that's a drawn a budget of over shillings 1.387 trillion for implementing also really the almost doubling amount of 6.9 something in there. But how do you make sure that this matters must be heard and must be dealt with issues keenly enough? Now, Biamakam also recently said that the presidential, parliamentary, and local governments elections will take up to 1.2 trillion, and that's something also which we feel must also be identified. And others, the continuous involvement reforms include also the electoral process, integration of ICT and digital social media platforms, a comprehensive civic and voter engagement, stakeholder association, and implementation of the court also recommendation in there. And this is also where I feel these matters also should be given keen interest, because at the end of the day, that is where we also really expect the people to understand how they will be voting and what exactly they should be considering while voting in there. And that's where we're leaving that discussion aside. And now moving into the DP camp, Mao says the DP bloc are free to return home, and that's something also we are seeing on the past morning, where the Democratic Party president, that's Norbert Mao, has also held out also an olive branch to former also members of his party, saying they are free to return despite the fractures past in there. He said the party is building for 2026, and that the group also really participation can help energize the party in here. And that is something also we are seeing on the past morning. Remember, as we're getting closer to 2025, we are seeing active politics already taking place. And 2020, 11 members of parliament who previously subscribed to the national, that's the party abandoned DP to join the National Unity Platform Party, headed by Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, and those who also crossed into include that Busura East MP, Medad Segona. We do have also the then Bukoto MP, Florence Namayanja. Others also include that is Veronica Nanyondo, Bukoma Simbi. We do have Robin Asentongo of Chetera, and Butambala County MP Mwanga Chivumbi, Kalungi West MP Joseph Seungu, Gonzaga, Masaka Municipality MP Betty Namboze, and many others who actually crossed from DP. And now DP President Norbert Mao is saying they are free to come back, and this is only where it's okay for them to also really come back and also really be part of the DP and green color in there and take the matter forward in there. And that's also something we are seeing on the past as we get closer to the end of today's discussions, and we want to also leave that aside as we get to move on with the show. You can still look out for this, and we shall be coming back tomorrow and to let you know on more of these discussions in and out. Now, Court Martial dismisses UPDF deserter from Army is another story that we are seeing on the past morning as we just left in about 3 minutes. The Court Martial sitting in Machin in Kampala has dismissed a 35-year-old Uganda Post Defense Forces deserter from the forces after finding him guilty of desertion, which is also really a crime in now. Second Lieutenant Muzamil Magezi was sentenced for dismissal with this guest from the Army on Monday, July 24, and now GCM Chairperson Brigadier General Robert Freeman Mugabe read the sentence to a convict saying that he had also really deserted the force, something also really which they feel is very bad. And really, as a UPDF soldier, you are supposed to be there until your time for living comes, because really to desert is something very, very much wrong. And at the end of the day, sometimes it becomes very much difficult for people to also be trusted, because after deserting, many of the crimes that continue to happen, more so with the gun issues, could tend to be attributed that is mainly to these people who are within the society, who have also been serving as soldiers. But how do you make sure that these issues also that do not also continue to happen in there? Because we need to see and ensure that people who are there do not also really live also really without also really the necessary procedures in there. And that's something also really where at the end of the day I would also really want to also really remind you of, because to keep you just there, you will need the right channels also really to move also really in there, and that will also really be good for you in there. And I feel at the end of the day, that is where also really we need to understand that desertion is never good. And that's also really where we need to also really make sure that as we are joining the forces, we need to make sure that we are joining for the right cause. We are joining for life to serve the citizens, but sometimes we see people deserting, and that is how very, very much dangerous it is. And we are saying all these matters should also really be given keen interest, and that's how at the end of the day we are seeing many people also really living on also the forces to also really join maybe the community members, and that's quite bad. We are saying you must make sure that you serve for life. And leaving that aside, and now summarize the whole discussions with what's happening internationally. And Israel's strike in Beirut raises the stakes with Hezbollah is another story we are seeing on the papers coming this morning, and this is on CNN. And last also time Israel struck the Lebanese capital was in January, and that's sort of where we are seeing the Israel war still continuing. But how do we make sure that these issues also really continue to happen? And in Palestine we are still seeing the wars also really going on. And how exactly should this also really, the world also really address this matter? Because we are seeing destruction of property, we are seeing issues of violations of people's rights going on. We are seeing also people being killed in this also insurgencies in there. But that is one thing also we feel we need to also really keep you reminded of, and that's how at the end of the day we are seeing people also really dying in there. And that is where we're leaving that discussion aside, and more details to that will be coming through in our subsequent news bulletins, where they will also be letting you know of what is happening in there. Now to summarize the entire discussion with what's happening in the world of sports, and straight in the world of transfers, Chido Obi Martin to Man United, also really here we go, and Talento Strike also in the names also really leaves Arsenal and just also accepted Manchester United. That's really where the player in the names of Chido will be joining Manchester United, and what exactly would he bring on board is something also really somebody out there could be also targeting, because looking at the clubs, they are structuring ahead of 2026 by beefing up their players and the camps is in there. Now, leaving that aside, Atletico Madrid and Chelsea are on the verge of reaching an agreement for Conor Gallagher after talks also in the last 24 hours. And remember, the player in the names of Conor Gallagher has been also with the Blues and now will be moving to the red side. That's Atletico Madrid, and also at a fee yet to be disclosed in there. And how exactly will also be meaning? That is also something that will also be tackling in there, and that's where Owen Zaka together with Linda Susie will be coming also to let you know of what's happening in the world of sports. But before we get to move out, and remember Arsenal still chasing the signature in the names of player of Victor Osimhen. Also that's something also where the team is also looking forward to also signing that player in there, and more details to that will be coming through. That's the whistle time, and I want to stop here for today's discussions and say thank you so much. Whoever watched us right from the time we began until this hour of the morning, we say thank you so much. In case you're planning to move and you're within a rural city planning to move down, please, we are saying you must make sure that you carry your pullover or umbrellas, because you may be washed by the rains, because it's a chilly weather right here in a rural city. I don't know how it is in other parts of the region, but we are saying we are here to sort of keep you updated across all sectors. We come to the end of today's discussions, and we shall be bouncing back tomorrow, where we shall be discussing issues related to electricity. I sign out until tomorrow. Up next is the news bulletin in Lubarati with Fete Emmanuel.